I continue to talk about a book titled Chaos and Harmony by Trinh Xuan Thuan, The Fabrication of the Real. And that's a very Hegelian title for a book because Hegel is the philosopher whose attempt is to unify all opposites. And Hegel's view of nature is probably that chaos is harmonious and harmony is chaotic, and you have both aspects, the lawful aspect of nature with the principle of indeterminacy within it. And Hegel's philosophy of nature is an attempt to reconcile um, what we call sciences. So Hegel's philosophy of nature must be in agreement with the empirical sciences, partly at least, and pseudoscience, the astrological, occult influences, to reestablish a full sense of the unity of nature at all levels. And I will put the link of a video down below titled The Mind Bending Art of Deep Time by Katie Patterson on TED. And the purpose of a philosophy of nature, which is also a pagan view of nature mediated by a conceptual understanding, is to re-establish a sense of substantial unity with the whole of nature by rationally understanding our place within nature and by learning to conceptually appreciate the flow of nature and the magic at work in nature. And I will comment passages from the preface. And he says that in order to understand nature, quantum mechanics must leave behind a strictly and purely deterministic view of nature and let room for randomness and fantasy at the subatomic level. And the purpose is to rationally understand the magical aspect of quantum physics, the spiritual aspect of it, the idea that particles are inextricably linked and connected together, and it ties the idea of coincidences and synchronicities. And we already found this, although not expressed with clear words in Hegel, but the idea of correspondences and the unity of the various level of the cosmos and the influence of the planets and the movements of nature upon spirit, it must be rediscovered in a conceptual understanding. He says that in order to create complexity, nature, which is the realm of time, space, matter, energy, the forces, will bet on unbalance of disequilibrium. It is a rupture, a breaking down of balance, which creates unbalance and a movement and a situation which enables unbalanced situation, which would create a broken symmetry. And this is from this broken symmetry of nature. And the modern cosmologists tell us that the creation of the universe comes from the virtuality of the void, the potentiality of the nothingness at root of everything, which was broken in a way, and the nothing virtually became a positively charged void, which created the whole of energy and matter and expansion. And it's a breaking down of stability which produced and made nature come into being. And we find this idea expressed in philosophical terms in the system of Hegel. The book says that nature innovates, nature is creative, and she creates beautiful forms and shapes and what is called fractals, which is a structure which is identical at all levels of being. And Hegel's logic is a triangle of triangle of triangle, and his view of nature is that nature is the alienated image, the reflection of the eternal logical idea, and that we find the same structure at all levels of nature, and that images and emblems and symbols in nature are a reflection of the logical and conceptual structure of mental mind. And the beauty of nature, according to Hegel, should not be celebrated as higher than the beauty of spirit, but it is a reflection of the logical beauty and the logical structure and connection of the universal mind. So uh, the mind of thinking men shall recognize themselves in nature and decipher and decrypt the symbols within nature. Then the book is divided into various chapters. There are 7 chapters. The first one considers and evokes the beauty and the truth of nature, and the scientific activity is often depicted as cold and impersonal, because a scientist in every field of knowledge must learn to separate his personal opinion, his personal involvement, his emotional attachment in the topic that he's treating from the universal discourse that he can produce about the given topic that he's inquiring about. And so it's a cold activity, because you have to be detached and you have to leave aside your personality and your selfhood, and you have to let the flow of truth speak through you. So that's why scientific activity demands a sense of self-sacrifice. But he says that this activity of negation of self is not without an aesthetic appreciation, because the harmony and the hidden structure of nature is very satisfying for the mind, and it can produce great pleasure to and great joy to conceptually grasp the rational unity at work within all the levels of nature. Chapter 2 tells the story of the solar system and how the real is both determined and indeterminate. It is a dialectical, he doesn't use the word dialectical, it's a dialectical unity of determinacy and indeterminacy at all levels, and it's a mixture of randomness and necessity, which is also Hegelian, because for Hegel, rigoristic determinism would not be true determinism if it did not include within itself a part of contingence. And the real determinacy is the unity of itself and its opposite. He says that we must appreciate the beauty of the flowering spring and the sweet clarity of the moon and our own existence. Chapter 3 deals with the theory of chaos, and chaos, which is a mythological god in Hesiod, and the purpose of a philosophy of nature is to unite mythology with scientific endeavor, and chaos is the absence of determinacy, the absence of clarity, of strictly separated logical and mental determinations, and we don't see and we don't conceptually distinguishes anything within chaos, and it is the activity of the mind to structure and to logically order chaos. And nature is this self-organizing process, according to him, and chaos enables nature to realize its potentialities to fabricate, to create reality, which is a structured and ordered totality. Chapter 4 deals with how nature uses subtle principles of symmetry to impose a profound unity to the physical world. But the unity of nature is not immediately given. It must be conceptually understood, and we can be amazed and we can feel the sublime power of nature when we are confronted with a beautiful landscape or an overwhelming rising sun or a full moon or a solar eclipse or wind rushes. I don't know, but we have to learn to distinguish the profound unity at all levels of nature to be able to appreciate this overwhelming logical and rational structure of the physical world. He says that the history of science and this principle of symmetry has enabled the unification of electricity with magnetism, time with space, and the black holes remain the strangest aspects of nature. And um, every progress in science, whether empirical or philosophical, consists in bringing together the unity of previously opposed determination, and every great scientist is a thinker who has reunited and conceptually unified opposite and apparently distinguished forces. And the purpose of physics and the goal of physics in the 21st century is to unify all forces at the core level of the universe. And yeah, and when the forces of physics are united, we will understand ourselves as being a conscious manifestation of the one force, and the universe will become conscious of itself as being the consciousness of this one force, which is cosmotheism, that William Pierce predicted in the 1970s and 80s to be the dominant force in physics tomorrow. And many years later, 40 years later, there are many books about laymen or scientific researchers who explain that consciousness is an essential aspect of the cosmos. In chapter 5, we visit the world of atoms and the quantum blur. The blurred reality of the quantum level is made manifest, and the real is no longer objective but depends on the observer. So we find at the root of the quantum level this ancient philosophical idea of Hindu philosophy, the idea that the observer and that which is observed are identical, and that consciousness in a way is essential and is even prior to the experience of the sensuous manifestation of nature, so that the observer has a role to play and is necessary in a way. And we will try to put order in the incredible variety of particles at the quantum level, and to be closer to a unified theory of the fundamental forces of nature. Chapter 6 deals with the creativity of nature, that the quantum blur, the blurred quantum field in a way enables nature to express her potentialities and to create physical laws which enable the outburst and the springing forth of life. That's a mystery for physicists. How can life emerge? But we will see with Hegel's philosophy that the purpose of nature is to make the life of the logical idea manifest and sensuous. There are emerging principles of self-organization and a rise of complexity which is brought forth in a holistic manner, and it is how the logical idea, the eternal idea of logic that Hegel talks about, is a self-organizing, self-moving, self-shaping and self-structuring logical totality which gives itself a sensuous presence by alienating itself in nature. And the purpose of the philosophy of nature is to find the logical idea within nature. The chapter 7 deals with man's unreasonable efficiency to understand the universe, and it seems that the physical laws have been set and regulated in such a way that life can emerge and that consciousness can emerge, and that's a mystery for modern physicists. How comes that the universe is made in such a way that consciousness can appear and understand the universe? But I think they are understanding things in an inverted way. We must see the universe as a reflection of consciousness and not the other way around. And yeah, and he wonders if the purpose of man would not to bring meaning and purpose to the universe. And he deals with the philosophical and theological implications of these new discoveries in the field of science. And he tried to make the form and the content as pleasant as possible. And that was it. That was just the introduction, and I will continue in later videos the next and coming days to comment on this book and to try to make sense of the modern discovery in physics and in the philosophy of nature to make it conform to what Hegel calls the logical ID.